This is a quick setup for Skyward's Gradebook. We're going to very quickly cover widgets, preferences, 4 gradebook items, scoring method, categories, display options, and enter an assignment. This is intended to be quick, get you up and running. If you want more detail, we'll make some videos later, in particular about scoring method, categories, those types of things. When you go into Skyward for the first time, you're going to have the option to set up your widgets. And if you'll click on that, you can pick the widgets that you'd like to use. The ones that I'm choosing here are ones that you'll want to use, I believe, so I pick those. Once you pick what you want, you can save them. And then once you have those done, you can move around on your home screen however you would like to see them. So I'll show you, I'm going to move one here. And then we can do some additional setup under the quick access. This is really going to help you get in and take attendance quickly. So if you'll pick the options that I choose here, I think it'll be valuable to you. You won't really see this much today because this is not an actual attendance day, so I won't show you much about attendance just yet. Once you have those set, then you can also look at your preferences. The main thing people typically do here is change the color if they want a different color in the gradebook. Once you go through those, again, you can save, and then we'll get into the actual gradebook and start with looking and seeing what are you going to see when you click on Gradebook. Under Teacher Access, clicked on Gradebook, and you'll see you have several options here. Under your courses, you can look at all of them, current, or you can look at what's meeting today. If you do current right now, you're not going to see anything because the grading period hasn't started, so we'll stay with all. Then you can see in the different areas, you have your department, your subject, the periods that the terms that it's going to meet. If you're in high school, those terms will probably be 1 to 3 or 4 to 6. Middle school will be 1 to 6 unless you're teaching a semester class. And once you get an idea of how this looks in your different classes, you can click on Gradebook. When you do that the first time, they're going to ask you to choose a scoring method. Here I'm going to show you the recommended scoring method. Later on we can talk a little bit more in detail about your different choices. But for now we're going to pick this percentages by grading period. This will give you the most flexibility and keep you from having to call me later on to change your gradebook. Next we want to set the scoring method up for the other classes. Use the back button and then the Classes tab. Select the class that we want, choose the scoring method, again we're doing by grade period, and save, and then back to the back button, and we'll continue to do that for all of the classes. Again, scoring method, we're not having to change it, that's the default scoring method, so we're just saving. And again, going through to do this to each gradebook, that's going to allow you later on to set up one gradebook and then copy those categories to your other gradebooks. So it seems a little tedious at this point, but if you'll do this to start, it'll save you time later on. If you're not sure which class you're on, as you go down through the list, you can look up at the top and it will show you which class you're currently in, and then you'll know which class you need to go to next. Again, later on we'll come back to make another video, talk a little bit more about other scoring method choices. If you know for sure you're going to use the same categories the entire class for all 3 terms if you're high school, or all 6 terms if you're middle school, then you can choose the second option instead of the third option. The problem is if you change your mind and decide you're going to have a project or something else different in one of those grading periods, then you're not going to be allowed to do that. You truly have to have those same categories. And the other thing about categories is going to be, once you choose a category, you have to put a grade in there. If not, it will change the way your weighting is done, and your percentages won't work the way that you expect them to. So if you do choose a category, when we get to that point, you do need to put grades in that category. So at this point, I believe we have all the scoring methods selected for the gradebook. So the next thing to do would be to go and actually start setting up our categories. When we do have them, like I said, you can use these same categories in your other gradebook. So set this up one time, copy it to your other gradebooks. Here's a list of all the different categories that are available. I have a default setup that I hope is useful to you. If you don't like what we have, you can click around and change them. Just make sure that when you're finished, that you do get 100% as a total. You don't want to do 90, because again, that will throw off your averages. It'll do weird things. So make sure your category usage totals up to 100. The other thing to keep in mind is your 6 weeks test is 20%, and no grade can count more than 20%. So if you have a category that is greater than 20%, let's say it's 25%, you need at least 2 grades in there. If it's greater than 40%, so you have a category that's 50% of your class average, then you need to have at least 3 grades in there, so that no grade is more than 20%. That's very important. What I'm doing here is just setting up some different categories for the different grading periods, so you can get an idea of what that looks like as you do that. As you can see, if you have a category selected but you're not using it in that grading period, you'll have a gray box for that category in that grading period. If in this case I had a 0%, so I went and got rid of that category. If you don't have weight in it, you need to get rid of it. If you're not going to put grades in it, you need to get rid of it. You do not want to have a category selected without weight, and you don't want to have a category selected with weight without grades. If you leave grades out of a category, then the percentages are not going to work. What will happen is, if say you had a category worth 20% and you didn't put grades in it, then it would allocate that 20% across the other categories based on the weights of those categories. The problem with that is sometimes you end up with a grade in a category that then becomes greater than 20% of the overall grade, which we told you before, you don't want to do that. So the easiest way to take care of that, you have a category, make sure it has weight, and make sure you put grades in it so that they don't equal more than 20% of the total average. That again is why I think it's probably best practice to be able to choose your categories per grading period rather than just doing it one time. Again, if you know you're going to use the same categories all the way throughout, then I'll show you that in a different video, or you can probably figure it out. You just choose that second option and set up the categories one time for the entire class period, all 3 terms or all 6 terms, depending on whether it's a year-long class or a semester-long class. Should be getting close to having everybody, all the terms set up. You can go back then and change these later on, even though we've set up the terms for all 6 grading periods. So in grading period 1, you can change that and continue to change it until you get to the end of the first progress report. That'll be the time at which it'll lock, and it will not allow you to make any further changes. So I would recommend that you have your categories set up within the first week, and then you'll be in good shape. Once you have your categories like you want them, this is the way that you would go out and set it up in the other classes. You can choose which classes, if you want to put it in all of them, or maybe you have 2 different preps and you want to set one group up one way and one another way. You have control over it to be able to do that. So this is, again, just a quick way of getting the categories set up and rolled out to all of your other classes. Next, we'll look at the gradebook screen, get familiar with the layout, and I think we'll work on the options next. You may not have all the buttons at the top depending on what roles you have within Skyward, but you will have the teacher access. You will have the sub-menus that allow you to get to different functions within the gradebook. This is the area where the grades will actually show up, and then you have a column that will show you a term grade, whichever term you have. It has to be one of the ones that you're currently displaying. I'm actually going to get rid of that when I go into my options. And then you have different columns for your semester grades, final grades, different 6 weeks periods. 6W6 would be the 6 weeks. CZ6 would be citizenship for the six weeks. It's hard to say. And right now we're looking at all of them, but we'll go in and make this a little less cumbersome so that you don't have to see everything at once. Start with the display options, and we'll go into the grade period display. You always are going to have to show, that's great English, the current grading period. So even though I'm hiding all of these, once the school year starts, it won't let you hide the current grading, anything that's current. It may be a progress report and a 6 weeks or just the 6 weeks. But if those dates are active, then you cannot uncheck those boxes. You have a column both for the assignments and for the grade display, the period display, and you can also do by date range. If you don't see your grades when you get into your grade book, say second or third 6 weeks, it's probably because your grade period display is not checked to show those grades. When you get into the second 6 weeks, you may just want to see the grading period for the first 6 weeks, and then the assignments and the grading period for the second 6 weeks. Once you get your grading periods selected, then you can see less of the grade book and not be so overwhelmed with all the different columns. The next thing we'll look at is the students. If you click on a student's gender, you can actually get in to see more information about them, and what's really useful here is you can see the gradebook for the family access, which the parents and family will see, and also the gradebook as the student will see it. It's important that you, in your gradebook, when you're doing assignments, post things to the family access and student access. If you do not, the grade that they see will be different than their actual grades. So make sure you push those grades out there and those assignments out there so they will see them. Next thing under display options, went in to look at the way the names are displayed. It's basically a student display. I picked one that I liked. This is drop students. If you have students that drop your class and you need to see them, you can check that. But keep it unchecked unless you're just going in to look at them, and when you're finished, uncheck it again or you'll end up giving them assignments. Order, typically we do that by last name. If you like to set it up in a specific order, then you can select that chart there and move those kids around in whatever order you like to have them in on the display. I know some people like to number their students, and then somebody comes in later and they're out of order. We can go back and set it up that way. And the next thing we're going into is the assignment display. I'm getting rid of that column that I talked about earlier that just basically shows the same stuff that's out further over there. I checked a box to say show the posted grades in a different color. I'm going to group my categories together for fun, and you can change the order, whether you want to go left to right or right to left, whatever makes you comfortable. And I'll come back to that later in the assignments video so you can see what that looks like. This is where you can set your defaults, and you want to set these to yes. I highly recommend that you do that step there. That will automatically post things to the student and the family access, and it'll keep the grades all synced up. If you don't do that, then you could cause yourself some problems. And the last thing was just how is the display going to look for the assignment, and you can pick whichever of the 6 you like to see. And now we'll enter an assignment just so you have an idea of how that goes. You will pick whatever category you want to put the assignment in. You can give it a description. That would be something short that you want to show up on the gradebook. And then you can also do a more detailed description. You have several dates here. You have an assignment date. You have the due date and the actual due date, proposed due date and actual due dates. You don't have to use the actual due date if you don't want to. The due dates, it's important that you have that set up on a day that actually meets. And here, for some reason, it's saying Monday, we're not in school. This is the training database, so we might have things set up a little different there. Don't worry about that in this video. But if you do see this, it probably is telling you that you're on a weekend or something, a holiday, and you may want to change that date. Also, I would not make it the very last day of the grading period, because sometimes we have to move those grade period dates. So that would be important to keep that probably a day or two before the end of the grading period, if you don't mind. If you don't, if you set it that last day, you'll probably be okay. And here I'm showing you the post to student and family access. Those are checked because we checked yes in that other area earlier. Your max score, keep that set to 100. Save yourself a lot of trouble. And if you're going to count this assignment more than once, you can do that with that weight multiplier. Once you have the assignment set up, you can put it in other grade books. I believe this is a reading class, so if I want to put it in other reading classes or English classes, whichever one it is, then I can just put it in that, or I can put it in all of them if that's what I want to do. I believe here I put them in the reading class. The thing that's important about assignments, and we don't want to really gloss over this, so if you're going to sleep, wake up for a second. You want to have these assignments in the grade book prior to the end of the grading period. If you try to, the grading period ends on a Friday, and you put an assignment in on that Saturday, it's not going to show up for you. So get your grading assignments in before the grading period. If you have that done, you can still grade them over the weekend. You can enter those grades. But the assignment needs to be in prior to the end of the grading period. Once you have them, then you can use quick scoring to score them, or you can click right in that column and enter the grades. If you know that most people are going to make a particular grade on this, you can mass assign that grade. In this case, I think we're going to be generous and give everybody 100 to start with, and then change our mind, and we can remove all those grades just as easily. There's several columns here, so we'll put some information in the actual scoring column. Put some scores in there so you can see what that looks like. So you have columns for no count, for missing, comments, and you have some special codes as well. No count is simply that assignment will not count. It won't show up on their family access, it won't show up on their student access. For whatever reason, you're not assigning that particular assignment to that particular student. Missing, check that so that they know that that's missing. If that grade is going to count against them if they don't turn it in, then check missing. If they know, I've got something missing, it'll show up on their family access and their student access, and they know they need to get that in. Their comments are freeform, so you can type in whatever you like in the comments. Special codes are not freeform, they're over there on the right, and they will automatically check some of these boxes. If a student's in challenge, then the grade is, that assignment is a no count, because you will get an average at the end of the term for that student. If the student comes back in the middle of a grading period, and I said term earlier, I meant grading period. At the end of that grading period, you'll get a grade back from the challenge teacher, and you'll just enter that average. But you want to no count all their grades prior to that. If they come back in the middle of a grading period, then you'll go through and give them the average. If they come back with an 85, you'll give them an 85 on every assignment that was done prior to them returning to your class, and that will start them out with that 85 average. And I chose some of the other special codes so you could see what they tend to mark. Absent, missing, redo marks nothing. It's just a reminder to you that you want that student to redo that assignment. Once you're finished, you want to save. This is what the grades look like now that they've been entered. You can see the way that challenge and the different codes come up. You can hover over the different cells and you'll see different notes about what you have in there. And you can see at the top the way that the assignment display, you can change the way those look as well. The average then will go into whatever progress report and or grading period that it needs to average into automatically. To enter citizenship grades, just click on the citizenship column. If you want to start everybody out with an A, you can certainly do that. And I think I'm going to give somebody a different grade. Probably let's pick on the last person and just give them a C so you can have an idea of what that looks like. Poor last person. And there you have it. That takes care of most of the gradebook items. That's fairly quick. The other thing we want to take a brief look at is attendance. And you can do that by name or seating chart. Again, most of that will work better on a day that we can actually take attendance. But I do want to show you how to move kids around. If you want to use a seating chart, you can select the number of rows and the number of seats per row. And then if you select a kiddo and select a seat, you move them that easily. You can show photos, and it makes it really easy on you and potentially even a substitute to take attendance. Once you have that set up, if you actually want to take attendance using the seating chart, you can select that, and then you'll be able to go in and mark those students as absent or tardy once it is an actual attendance taking day. So that gets us to the end. Hopefully you'll be able to set up your gradebook at this point. For those of you that like more detail, I plan on making some videos to go in a little bit more detail, but really the idea of this is to get people up and running quickly without having to listen to me drone on and on. If you need additional help with something else, you can always email us at gradebook@mesquiteisd.org. That will come to the Information Systems Office. When you do that, please make sure that you have good contact information, an email, your name, school that you're at, a phone number. I'd rather talk on the phone quite often to make sure I understand the problem. Also, if you can tell us any details, even screenshots help out a lot. So anyway, you can email that anytime it does come to the Information Systems Office, and we'll get back to you. So hopefully this has been worth a little bit of time and get you up and running. If you do have questions or comments, send them out to the Gradebook address and we'll get back to you. Thanks a lot and good luck.